Last time we were talking Photoshop, we worked with face shine and skin and how to set up your retouching layers. Today we're going to tackle retouching eyes. Now, arguably, the most important part of retouching process is the eyes, and it takes a few steps to get realistic results. So let's get into it. Hi, I'm Terry Vanderheiden, professional photographer, and today I'm going to break down the few steps it's going to take to improving the retouching of your eyes in portraits. Now, some say that the eyes are the windows to the soul, so great care should be taken when you're retouching eyes. They are certainly the focal point of just about any portrait and the single most important part of the face that absolutely should be in the sharpest focus. The eyes are what people look at first in most portraits. Well, most of the time at least. So let's get into Photoshop and see what we can do to improve the look of eyes. So before we get into Photoshop, I usually start all of my work in Lightroom, and this is going to be no different. In Lightroom, here's a portrait that we have. It's a little dark, so we're going to go into the Develop module, and we're just going to bring up the exposure just a little bit, bring up some of the shadows just a little bit. Not a lot of work, just a little bit of work that we're going to do. And then we're going to right-click on the image, go to Edit, and they'll edit in Adobe Photoshop 2025. So now the image comes up here and we're going to work with this. Now, a couple things that I like to do to begin with is you can see how this is RGB/16. That means it's in 16-bit, which is a bigger color depth, and your file size gets pretty large when you start making multiple layers in your image. So especially for practice, and if your images are just going to, say, the internet or something, you're not going to have an issue with changing this mode to 8-bit. So image, mode, bring it down, and go to 8-bit. Now, if you're really stuck on working in 16-bit, you certainly can. It just makes the file larger to deal with. And especially for me teaching, it just goes, things go a little bit faster. I have a pretty fast Mac here, but you'll find that you might want to save yourself some time, and when you change something over into 8-bit, I challenge you to take a really close look at it and see what you think the difference is between 8-bit and 16-bit, other than the fact that everything goes faster. So for most cases, you're not going to need to work in 16-bit, especially in portraits. You can work in 8-bit. Let's go ahead and zoom up. We'll grab the zoom tool, zoom up on the eyes. And in fact, what we're going to do is probably zoom into one eye. So let's go ahead and zoom this up so it's pretty good size. There we go. Now, the first thing we do on just about any retouching, because we want to kind of control what we're doing, is we're going to make a copy of that first main layer. And this is what builds up the size of your files inside of Photoshop, is adding new layers. So we'll do Command J or Control J if you're on the PC. You see how here we made a new layer over here. And we're just going to work on that. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to work on the whites of the eyes. Now, a couple things to keep in mind when you're working on the whites of the eyes is that up in the top of the eye is a little darker than down at the bottom of the eye, because obviously the eye is shadowing the light coming in. So it's not going to be generally as bright as the bottom. So you have to be a little cautious with that. So let's go ahead and zoom up just a little bit. What we want to do in this level is we want to try to reduce some of these red eye vessels. So the way to do that is I use the clone stamp tool. Come over here. Now you can see here that we're working across the top. We've got our soft brush where mode is normal and opacity is 37%. We can actually move that down to about 20 or 25%. That's an easier way to work. I prefer, when I'm doing some cloning for this type of thing, is to just do light passes until we get it exactly the way we want, as opposed to doing 100% and having it look a little noticeable. So let's go ahead and reduce our brush size here. Now, when we go to clone, if we're going to clone from the bottom of the eye up, let's go ahead and grab a tone. We'll click down here, hold the Option key or Alt key if you're on PC, and then we paint. And of course, that little crosshair is where it's taking its tone from. And that works okay, but I think a better way, we'll undo that, is to come up here to Mode and pull down and tell the Clone Stamp tool that we want it to lighten. And what lighten does is it is only going to take this tone here from its lightness and try to get rid of the dark here to bring it up to that level of lightness. So it's lightening up what we cloned. So let's go in and try this. Again, we hit our Option or Alt key and we start painting over our eye vessels. And it works pretty darn good. If you were to come from this direction and go dark down here, it's not going to work as well. So what you want to keep in mind is you want to kind of work up from the lightest areas and do your retouching. And again, we're just kind of cloning over any of the eye vessels that are standing out because, we're trying to make people look their best, and maybe they didn't get enough sleep. Maybe they have some allergies going on, but we don't want to have them with too many eye vessels or bloodshot eyes in the end portrait of this. So you can see this is a little bit of a tedious way to go. It takes a little bit of time, and it's worth it though. I think you should do it. But let me show you a quicker way. It does cost a little bit of money, but it's a quicker way. So let's go in this way. We'll add a new layer again, Command or Control J. We'll turn this one off for now. There is a program that you can buy. It's a filter from Retouch for Me, and I've done a few of these videos that show Retouch for Me, and this one I've stumbled across and I really like it. It only does eye vessels. It's only just it's a one-trick pony, right? It does that one thing, but it does it really good. So check this out. We'll put in eye vessels and we're going to let the computer do its thing. It'll look at it, and we have this at 100%. You can do this on auto, or I actually put it on the little single person so that it knows that. And this one is probably not going to mess it up, but it knows that this is a single person that we're working with. And I leave the blend mode at 100% because I know that I can always pull this back on opacity after if I want to. And over here, you can click to make a mask. You don't need to do this, but for me to show you what we're doing, it makes it a little bit easier. So we'll hit apply and we'll let it do its thing. And look at the difference. Those are the vessels that it took out in a one little click switch. And this only takes seconds. So if you're doing a lot of eyes, 2 eyes per person and a lot of people, using this tool to remove and clean up the eye vessels is really a cool feature. And, not every filter is worth everything that you're going to spend for it, but this is something where it does a very precise thing, but it really seems to do it well. And I like it, and I've added it to my workflow. So Retouch for Me did give me a discount for my subscribers. I'll leave it in the description below. So if you want to get this program, you can use that that coupon, if you will, by going to that link, and then it'll give you the discount, which I think is like 20%. So that's pretty cool. So check that out. And if they have any other kind of sales going on, you'll get the discount from me on top of that, which is obviously great. So this is what I like to do. And in comparison, I just think it does a pretty good job. So this is what we did briefly, and then this one in a couple of seconds. So I like how that's done. So it really cleans that up pretty well. And you don't want to take all the eye vessels down to nothing. That looks too weird. You can see here, if we turn off the bottom layer, this is essentially what Retouch for Me did. So, but you don't want to take them out entirely. You just want to reduce them if you can. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start going up and changing some other things in the program. So we're still working on just this same eye. So what I like to do is I like to take this at this point. We don't need this layer that we worked on. We'll go ahead and delete that. Now I'm going to make a new layer that's a combo of both the retouching on the eye as well as the bottom layer. So we're going to use Shift, Option, Command, E. And that's on the Mac. So if you're on the PC, it's Shift, Alt, Control, letter E. And that will give you that combo layer. And I use this all the time. I make a combo layer all the time because now I can just kind of, okay, that's where I am so far. And now I can start moving forward. So the next thing we're going to do is make an adjustment layer. So let's go ahead and grab the adjustment layer, and we're going to go to curves. I know what you're thinking. Curves, this is scary. This is scary business in curves. It's not. This is really simple. All we're going to do is just work with the whites of the eyes, and so we're going to lighten it. So let's go ahead and grab this line, click on it, and drag it up. You can see everything lightening up here, right? So it's lightened it all up entirely, and we're good to go with that. And so what I like to do is label this, and we'll call this eye whites. Well, actually, we're going to call it eye bright. So it's brightening the tone of the eyes. And then it's all it gives you a layer mask, but we don't need a white layer mask. We need a black layer mask because we're only going to do a little bit, right? The only way to do that is Option Delete, and that'll fill it with black. And now we're starting from scratch. Now all we have to do is take our paintbrush, and if we just are painting with our paintbrush, we're able to go in and paint with white. That's down here. Make sure this is on white. And now we can paint, and you can see what we're doing with that. We're adding paint into this. Okay, so this is all this is doing is allowing whatever change we made on our curve to show through. And now we're just going along, and we're going to paint in this area here. Now there's a couple of ways that we can look at this. Let's go ahead and pull back just a little bit. Doesn't that look nice and real? Okay, it's overdone. So the way we fix overdone is a couple of ways. You can come in here, and we can go back into this and pull this down if we want. Or we can simply use opacity. So what I like to do is just come into opacity and then drag that down and just bring our brightening down. And usually it ends up being around 20 or 30%. It depends on how much you make that. Yeah, okay, this is starting to look good at 19%. So it depends on your curve that you set up in the first place. Not a real super big deal. You don't have to be super accurate. There's no particular numbers that you're going for. You're just going to go for a lightening of the eyes. So this is a way to whiten the eyes and allow it to be a little brighter for your eyes. Now let's go ahead and take a look what that's on and off. See how that brightens that whole thing just a little bit? I like that. So let's do another layer, and we're going to do another one this time, another adjustment layer, and we're going to go to hue and saturation. So in the hue and saturation, what we're going to do with the saturation, we're going to bring the saturation down, and we're going to use probably, let's go with a -47, and that will bring us to, you can see that it's taking the saturation out of the whole image. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to come up here, and we're going to do Option Delete. It depends on what color you're on. If Option Delete doesn't work, then Command Delete will work. And so instead of Alt Delete, you'd use Control Delete. It depends on how if you're set on default colors, then Option Delete will put the foreground color, and Command Delete will put the background color. It's just a little bit of a shortcut. You can always go up here and fill it if you want to go to Edit and then Fill, but this is just a little faster. So now again, we have this, but this is a hue and saturation. Now we're going to come in here and we're going to paint. So we're going to take our paintbrush again, and we're going to paint the color of the eyes. You can see what we're doing here. We're taking out tones. We're taking out color out of the whites of that eye, right? It almost has a little bit of a blue look to it. There. So now we've taken out any kind of color cast inside of the eye. Now this again looks a little extreme, so we're going to go up to our opacity and we'll pull this back a little bit. And now we're at, maybe about 40 to 50%. We'll turn this off and on so you can see what we've done. So we've just taken a little bit of color. So if somebody has a little yellow in their eyes, or if there's an over amount of red in the eyes, it's not going to fix those vessels, but it is going to take out the color, the base color out of it. And those are the things that you're going to want to try to do. So now we're good with this. Let's go ahead and make another adjustment layer. Click this, and we're going to go to, let's go to curves again, because everybody likes curves. It's just so much fun. You know, if you're enjoying this kind of content, take a second to hit that like button, because the like button makes YouTube say, wow, this video is liked, so let's show it to other people. And that's a way that I can get more people to see these videos. And also, if you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button. That's a really simple way that you can subscribe, and then YouTube's going to tell you about my next video when it comes up. The other thing you can do if you like is you can always email me, terry@imagelight.com, and I'll put you on my mailing list and let you know exactly when we have a new video up, so you can check that out. I appreciate it. So we've got our curves up. What are we going to do? We're going to go up. The first thing we're going to do is bring the curves up right up there. We're going to brighten, not so much, but just probably right about there. You want a nice little arc that's coming around here. And then we're going to go over here, and what are we going to do? We're going to change that to black. We're going to fill it with black because we only want just this to work inside of just inside of the brush, not the whole global thing. So we're going to do this, and we're going to call this iris. So this is dealing with just the irises, right? So let's go ahead and zoom up here. And with the iris, there's a couple of things that happen here. So we're going to take our paintbrush and we're going to paint around in this iris, giving it a little bit of tone. And that's starting to look pretty good, but what I want to do is I'm probably going to do something a little bit different. So let's undo this and let's do a duplicate of this. And we're going to go up here and just slide this down to the plus sign. And now we've made a duplicate, and we'll call this iris copy, and we're going to call this bright. And what we'll do with this is we'll come over to our curve and we'll actually pull that up just a little bit higher. Okay, so we've got two adjustment layers here that are very similar. We have iris and then we have iris bright. And let me show you how this works. We're going to paint on this one like we just did. So we'll paint around the iris. And if you kind of get an idea how light works, right? The way light works is it comes in from one direction. And across the eyeball, what's it going to light up most? It's not going to light up this area the most. It's going to light up this area. So we're going to come up here to iris bright, and in this area, we're going to do just a little bit more. So that's using a soft brush. So we've got this that was brightened, and then this area, which is a little more brightened. So let's go ahead and pull back and see what we've got. So now you can see what we've done with the eye here, right? Now, in this case, we want to, it's obviously way extreme. So what do? We go up to our friend, the opacity, and slide that back. So the first thing we're going to do is slide back that overall a little bit. Okay. And then we'll come up to the iris bright and bring that down a little bit. And you can do this to whatever level you want. You can start with however you want. But this is how we are brightening up those eyes and brightening up the irises. So let's go in here and we'll see what we started with. That's what we started. And now we're bringing some depth and some tone to the eyes. We're not done yet though. Let's go take another step here. So the area around the iris a lot of times should be a little darker. So what are we going to do? We're going to do kind of the same thing, right? We'll make another one here and we're going to do a curves adjustment layer. And this time we're going to bring the center line down a little bit. We're going to darken that, right? We'll start bringing that down to about something like that. And again, we're going to come up here, fill this with black, and we're only going to paint the edges here. So let's go ahead and grab our paintbrush, make it a little bit smaller brush. And what we're going to do is we're going to paint just around the iris. And here, you got to make a real tiny brush in order to get that. There we go. So now what we've done is we've done the edges of this, and it's quite a bit darker. And again, we've gone too far. Do a number of things. You can go to the curves and you could bring that curve back if you wanted, if you're more comfortable with that. Or you can just do what I do, and that's using the opacity. I bring the opacity back. So this is probably going to end up being, just from my experience, 20 or 30%. We'll turn this off and on. See that we made it just a little bit darker. And This in this case is around 36%, so we made this a little darker. So as we go through this, you'll see what we've done. Let's go ahead and turn these off. So the first thing we did is we fixed the eye vessels. Then we brightened the eye just a little bit. Then we took the tone out of the eye, any of the color cast out of the eye. Then the iris, we lightened it just a little bit entirely. And then we added that little highlight of light in the iris. And then we went around and darkened the edges of the iris. So those are the things that we're going to do. Now let's go ahead and we'll say dark edge. So that's pretty good, right? Now you've got another layer mask, and the layer masks are great because they're not affecting anything, right? It's just that one little section. You can change the opacity of each one and get it to however exactly you want it. But you can see here, we're going to keep this eye highlight that's from the light. We have lightened up the whites of the eyes. We've lightened up the iris, and it just has a much more vibrant look to it, and it brings attention to it. And that's what you want to do, is to enhance the eyes. And what's nice is you can do it at whatever level you want. You know, some people see my YouTube videos like, oh, it seems a little extreme. Well, I am showing you on YouTube here how to do something. So I'm going to do it a little more heavy-handed on YouTube than I would in real life. But this is a pretty simple way to go through, create those layers, and you'll be able to just knock out the eyes left and right. See you next time.